GM. Today I want to talk about prediction markets, especially about Polymarket and how it actually works. So if you go to Polymarket, if you t- this for example, 2025 person of the year, you have a bunch of options. You have a yes share, no share. You can buy yes share. You can buy no share. You can sell them, and in the background there is an order book. Um, so how does this work? So let's go in here and draw some things. So first of all, you have the front end, right? Then you have the order book, and you have contracts, right? Order book, very important, is off chain. Contracts are obviously on chain, and the front end is a front end. Okay. So what's interesting here? First of all, if you go back a couple of years, the order book was actually an AMM, but it's not anymore. It's an order book because the AMMs are too slow. So they had to switch to an off-chain order book. And what happens in the order book? In the order book, you match. Let's go down here. You match sell orders with buys, or bids and asks, right? So you have a bunch of bids, you have a bunch of asks, and if they match in the middle, a transaction basically happens. There are some markets where you can actually see the order book, but either they put it somewhere else, or I cannot see it anymore. But sometimes they show it on specific markets. So I don't know. Let's check sports. No, not sports. Let's check Fed decision in December. Um, no, they stopped showing it for some reason. Okay. Doesn't really matter. So it's just an order, but classic order book, right? I don't think there's anything special in there, but I could be wrong. It's not open source. You cannot see it. It's all off chain. So on chain, you have a bunch of contracts, and the contracts obviously are open source, are deployed on Polygon. So here in the CTF exchange repo, you can see all the repos. So if you go into source, dev, actually exchange, CTF exchange, this is where it gets interesting. And this is a bunch of things that get called by the order book to actually settle the trades. So let's actually go through a Polygon, through a Polymarket transaction. So you're on the front end, and you hit, I want to buy this, for example, right? You do it in a limit order. You do a trade. You want to do a trade. What happens in the front end is it signs that transaction, and that signature goes to the order book. And by the way, Polymark gives you like a server wallet, embedded wallet, and they do this in order to sponsor gas, and do multi-calls, batching, that kind of stuff. So the signature goes to the order book, and the order book basically looks at the signature and is like, hey, this is a valid signature. I can execute this. How does my order book look like? If it's a bid, is there a corresponding ask, and so on and so forth. If there actually is, it's going to be executed, and then the state, or basically your new balance, is synced on chain. So if you go to the Polygon scan, you can see a bunch of match orders, and if you go inside the match orders, it's basically a bunch of ERC 1155 transactions, because they represent yes and no tokens by an ERC 1155, which 1155 allows you to track multiple tokens in one contract. So this is basically the sync. And this is interesting, right? So how do you get new yes and no shares? Is by going to the contract, and the contract has a split function, split, and a merge function. So the split takes in one USDC and gives you back one yes and one no. One no. And the merge takes in one yes, it's the opposite, one no, and gives you back one USDC. And you know, if you're a market maker or whatever, you call the split function and you provide liquidity to every market. Okay, so where does this get interesting? Polymarket cannot take your funds. Your funds are on chain, but they could censor your trades. The order book could get the signed transaction and could be like, no, I'm not gonna execute this. And the order book is the only one that can call the contracts. All the functions on the contracts are authed. So if you go at fill order, fill orders, match orders, they all have the only operator modifier. Okay, so one last thing I wanna talk about, how are actually the market settles. They're using UMA Oracle, this kind of guy, which is an optimistic oracle, which is just a fancy word for anyone can come in and give an answer. So if you look here, launch voter app. Okay. So here, for example, will the highest temperature in Dallas be 63, whatever, and I can choose an answer, and I can actually sign this if I had some UMA. And this is totally optimistic, which means if no one says, hey, this is wrong, it will be the right answer, right? But there are, like some game theoretical incentives for people to actually flag that answer if they think it's wrong. But in the end, the UMA token holders decide. So if there is a dispute about an answer, in the end, UMA token holders decide which answer is correct. So this is a high-level overview over how it works. Pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of prediction markets. I can talk a little bit about prediction markets as well. I think we have some questions we still need to answer. There recently was this Google case about that guy who had insider knowledge about who's going to be the most Google person in 2025, and he worked at Google and he knew the answer and he made a lot of money. So you have two. You can look at it in two different ways. One is insider trading, which insider trading is wrong. He trades with information that is not public. But on the other side is he actually knew the truth, right? And the prediction market revealed that truth, which is kind of interesting. The second thing is every market on Polymarket kind of turns into an assassination market. If you take this one, for example, you can settle that easily by doing something bad. So yeah, some more questions we need to answer here, but again, big fan. I think it's the best way by far to discover truth, because you basically give it to the market, right? The market decides. The market is a great way to find things, to find truth. Another thing I'm very fascinated about is futarchy. And futarchy is basically a decision market. So let's say you run a DAO or you run a repo or you run an organization and you're not sure what to do next. So you have like a decision you need to make, it's like A or B, and you're not sure which one to take. So you create like a prediction market, and you take a metric, you choose a metric, and you're like you get the market in to bet on which decision they think is gonna maximize that metric. So let's say that this metric is revenue. So you basically create a prediction market around, hey, if this feature A was implemented, revenue in 6 months is gonna be increased, and you have the opposite. Or hey, if feature B was implemented, future revenue would be maximized. Um, and it's basically up to the market to find truth in there. And let's say it's like in 6 months. So in 6 months, you would go and look at the revenue and settle the market. Um, Great benefit too for DAOs because the vote is not limited by token holders anymore. It's open to any market participants, which is a lot bigger than just token holders. So one big MetaDAO is pretty big, which they're doing futarchy, fundraising governance platform for high quality founders in the communities. Very, very, very interesting stuff. All of this is very early, but I think this is like one of the most interesting things in crypto so far. So yeah, if you're building something interesting with prediction markets, please reach out. I want to talk to you. And thank you for tuning in.